What if? Elena sat at the kitchen table, her coffee mug warm in her hands. It was the kind of morning she was used to, nothing out of the ordinary. Her phone buzzed on the table beside her, a reminder for the important meeting at work in an hour. She glanced at the notification, her thumb swiping absent-mindedly across the screen. For a moment, everything felt normal. Then, an odd thought crossed her mind. What if I just threw my phone at the wall and just watched it crack in 1,000 places? She froze, fingers still hovering above the screen. Her pulse quickened. She blinked, trying to push the thought away, but it lingered like a shadow in her mind. Why would I even think that? Shaking her head, she stood up to get ready for work, but the thought wouldn't leave. What if I just let go? What if I did whatever I felt like doing? At work, Eleanor sat in a meeting, nodding along as her co-workers discussed the latest quarterly report. The words blurred together. But then a thought came again, quiet but persistent. What if I just stood up right now and screamed? Her hands twitched, a strange, impulsive feeling flooding her body. Her foot began tapping under the table, the urge to act mounting, like a pressure building in her chest. What if I just left? Walk out of this room right now. No one would stop me. She inhaled sharply, trying to act normal. No one else seemed to feel this, the odd tension, the urge to tear through the air and let the chaos out. The thought shifted. What if I just slapped the table, made them all look at me? Her skin prickled. No. This isn't me. This is ridiculous. But she couldn't focus anymore. The edges of the meeting, the voices, everything felt distant. She was detached from her body, as if her mind was watching from a distance. She squeezed her hands into fists to keep them still. She walked outside for her lunch break, hoping the fresh air would calm her. But instead, it only heightened the feeling. Her thoughts were a chaotic mess, and each one felt more terrifying than the last. What if I just stepped into traffic? Her heart raced. She stopped at the curb, paralyzed by the thought. The street was busy, cars zooming by, each of them a potential threat. But the thought persisted, strong and raw. What if I just... Her legs felt weak, her hands trembling. People walked past her oblivious, but Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing control of her own body. Her mind spun between the horror of the thought and the strange pull toward it. She wanted to step back, but her feet felt glued to the ground. She snapped out of it. She didn't move. She couldn't move. The fear of acting on the impulse rooted her in place, and after what felt like an eternity, she pulled herself away from the curb, her chest tight. Back at the office, Eleanor struggled to focus. The thoughts didn't stop. In fact, they were only growing louder. What if I just punched the desk? What if my arms just moved on their own to feel around my neck? She felt sick. Her hands were shaking, fingers twitching involuntarily. She gripped her pen so tight it snapped in her fist. But there it was again. What if I just stopped controlling myself? What if I just did whatever I wanted for once? By the time the workday ended, Eleanor's thoughts had become unbearable. She felt like a balloon ready to pop, tethered only by the smallest thread of restraint. She didn't want to go home. She didn't want to be alone with her mind, but it was the only place she could go. She walked into her apartment, the silence suffocating her. She dropped her bag on the floor, staring at her phone. The thought came again. What if I just threw it across the room? What if I just let it go? Without thinking, her arm snapped forward. The phone hit the wall with a sharp crack. pieces scattering across the floor. Elena stood there breathless. The sound of the shattering screen echoed in her ears, the silence that followed even louder. She hadn't planned it, hadn't meant to do it, but there it was. Her body had acted without her consent, without her control. She looked down at the broken phone, her chest tight, her mind racing. What just happened? The rush she felt was strange, alien. The relief was immediate, like she had just been freed from some invisible force that had been pushing against her. She felt something she hadn't in ages, freedom. But it wasn't the kind of freedom she had imagined. It wasn't uplifting or empowering. It was raw, chaotic, dangerous. She sank onto the couch, her eyes fixed on the shattered pieces of the phone. The room felt heavier now, filled with the weight of what she had just done, what her body had done. What if I just let it all go? Her breath caught in her throat. The thoughts had stopped, at least for now. But Elena couldn't shake the question that lingered in her mind. Was that me? She sat in the silence, unsure whether she had freed herself or lost herself entirely.